Murder in Wilson County. We're learning the suspect is charged with killing his own brother and his mother. Police identifying the victims as 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Darren Cox. Jenkins' 25-year-old son, Darion Jenkins, is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims were found inside a home yesterday evening on Snowden Drive.
Juanelia Carnegie lives next door to her cousin, Dana Jenkins.
She was a very sweet person. Always smiled. I can see her smile right now. She always smiled.
Carnegie says that in the days leading up to the murders, she felt something was off with Darion.
You could see it, the look. It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
Man, imagine this. You welcome your kid home from being locked up for X amount of years. You ain't seen your kid in so many years. You know a mother love. They can't wait to see their kid, right? Then when your kid get home, everything's cool. And then 6 days later, the whole family is gone. Just out of there. How did this even happen?
My baby is home. Lord, I thank you. Those were the words Dana Jenkins typed on Facebook on March 25, 2025. Just 8 words, but they carried 3 years' worth of prayers, pain, and hope. A mother's joy, typed in all caps and exclamation points. She wasn't just celebrating her son's return from prison, she was reclaiming her family, rebuilding the future she thought she'd lost. But 6 days later, flashing red and blue lights lit up the quiet street of Snowden Drive in Wilson, North Carolina. Yellow tape twisted in the wind. Neighbors stood frozen on their porches, hands over their mouths, watching in horror as 2 body bags were wheeled out of Dana's home. One for her, one for her 15-year-old son, Darren. And the man responsible? The very son she had just welcomed back with open arms. She opened her door, and he took everything. This wasn't a robbery. It wasn't a random act of violence. This was a homecoming turned horror show, a mother's dream turned nightmare, and a community left shattered in the span of 6 days. And it all began the moment Darren Jenkins came home. It was a day Dana Jenkins had been counting down to for years. The day her oldest son, Darren Jenkins, was finally coming home. She had cleaned the house from top to bottom, cooked his favorite meal, and told everyone who would listen, "This is our second chance." When she picked him up from the correctional facility, she greeted him with open arms and tears in her eyes. To Dana, it was the answer to her prayers, the end of a painful chapter, the beginning of a fresh start. She truly believed that Darren had paid his debt, learned his lesson, and was ready to start over. But the man she brought home wasn't the boy she remembered. Darren Jenkins had spent the last 3 years behind bars for breaking and entering and larceny of firearms. He had a history of violent behavior that stretched back to his late teens. At 19, he was arrested for stealing from parked cars in a church lot. At 21, he broke into a neighbor's home and took 3 guns. During his time in prison, he racked up multiple citations, fighting, threatening staff, and what officials referred to as malicious conduct. He'd been denied parole twice for his behavior. His release wasn't earned, it was automatic. A legal technicality, not a reward. But none of that mattered to Dana. She still believed, still hoped. When Darren arrived at the house on Snowden Drive, there was a handmade banner on the porch that read, "Welcome home." Balloons tied to the railing. Family gathered to celebrate. Photos from that day showed Dana beaming, standing beside her son with her arm around his waist. But look closer, and you'll see something else, something chilling. While everyone smiled, Darren stared blankly into the camera, his face expressionless, almost distant, cold. That unease wasn't just captured in photos, it was felt. Cousins, neighbors, friends. They all noticed it. Something was off. Off in his eyes. Off in his posture, off in the way he moved. "You could see it," said Dana's cousin Juanita. "But look, I knew he was about to do something. Another relative later said, he looked like a man just out of a war zone, or like someone still inside one. The celebration was real, but the danger was already inside the house. And in the days that followed, those red flags only grew louder. The homecoming that Dana Jenkins had prayed for quickly turned uneasy. In the days that followed Darren's return, something shifted in the atmosphere of that house on Snowden Drive. The joy began to feel strained. The warmth started to feel artificial, and those who were paying attention started to worry. It began subtly. Darren barely spoke. He paced the house at odd hours of the night, opening and closing doors, checking windows, mumbling things no one could quite understand. He'd stare out into the yard for long stretches, unmoving. Sometimes he'd freeze mid-conversation, his eyes going blank like he was somewhere else entirely. Then he'd snap back with a stiff, "I'm good," and walk away. He looked anxious, paranoid, unwell. A few family members described him as fidgety or like a bomb ticking down. One night, someone caught him just standing, still and silent, in the hallway outside a bedroom. Just watching. Just waiting. No one knew what he was thinking, but they all knew something wasn't right. Then came the injury. Darren showed up one morning with his hand wrapped in a makeshift bandage. When asked what happened, he offered no explanation, just shrugged it off. But the silence around that wound said more than words ever could. Still, no one confronted him. No one pushed, because they didn't want to hurt Dana. She was so happy to have him home, so hopeful, so convinced he was turning a new leaf. The last thing anyone wanted to do was pop that bubble. Not when she had waited so long for this reunion. So instead, they stayed quiet. Even after he asked Dana for $200 to get some things I need, she handed it over without hesitation. That's what mothers do, right? But police would later confirm that Darren used that money to buy bleach, duct tape, a hunting knife. The receipt was dated just days before the murders. People saw the signs, they felt them in their gut, but they bit their tongues out of love and loyalty. One cousin even admitted later, "I dreaded this day would come." You could see it in him. He wasn't right. But no one spoke up. No one stopped what was coming. Because Dana believed in redemption, and the rest of them didn't want to be the ones to take that hope away from her. In the end, the silence was fatal. March 31st, 2025. It was a Monday, ordinary in every way until it wasn't. At 5:30 p.m., a call came into Wilson County Emergency Dispatch. The voice on the line was unclear, confused. The dispatcher couldn't quite determine the nature of the emergency, only that something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Officers were immediately dispatched to a home on Snowden Drive, the same quiet street where just 6 days earlier a welcome home banner had been fluttering on the porch. When police arrived, everything outside looked eerily normal. Dana's car was parked in the driveway. The porch light was glowing. There were no signs of forced entry, no shattered glass, no screams from inside, but the silence was heavy, and the door wouldn't open. What officers found when they finally entered that house would stay with them forever. Inside, 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Darren Cox, were found dead. Both had been stabbed repeatedly in what investigators would later describe as an act of extreme violence. It wasn't clean. It wasn't impulsive. It was rage, contained and then unleashed with terrifying precision. Dana, the mother who had believed so fiercely in love and forgiveness, was reportedly found near the front of the house. Her body bore the brunt of the attack. Darren, her youngest child, her baby, was found further inside. As if he'd tried to run, as if he'd tried to escape. He didn't make it. The brutal nature of the killings shook even the most seasoned first responders. One officer later described the scene as something you only expect to see in war, not in a mother's living room. And then came the most haunting detail of all. Darren Jenkins, 25 years old, the very man Dana had brought home with open arms, was still at the scene. He didn't run, he didn't hide, he didn't resist. He was calm. When officers took him into custody, there was no struggle, no emotion, just quiet. Within hours, police announced that Darren had been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of his mother and brother. He was taken to the Wilson County Jail, where he would remain without bond. Just 6 days earlier, Dana had thanked God for her son's return. Now the community was asking why God had allowed him to take her life.
Just released from prison last week, is now charged with killing his mother and younger brother after they were found dead in their Wilson County home on Monday.
Today, a family member who lives right next door is talking with WITN.
Yeah, Darian Jenkins is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder after police say he killed his mother and younger brother. They were found dead here in this home behind me. Now the cousin of the mother is speaking to us, trying to figure out how this could have happened.
I always smile. I can see her smiling right now. She always smiled.
That's how Juanilia Cornigi describes her cousin, Dana Jenkins. Now she is left shocked and hurt after learning Jenkins was found dead in her Wilson home alongside her 15-year-old son. The suspect in these horrific murders, Jenkins's older son.
I would have never thought that. Not like this.
Police say on Monday they went to this home on Snowden Drive shortly before 5:30 p.m. and found 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and a 15-year-old boy dead. According to Cornigi, the 15-year-old's name is Darren. Tuesday, police say they have the son of Dana and the older brother to Darren, Darian Jenkins, in custody for these deaths. Cornigi says that in the days leading up to the murders, she felt something was off with Darian.
You could see it. The look. It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
This church is where Dana and Darren found comfort. Bishop Sherman Blandon says he knew them well.
It has been very difficult, confusing, troubling.
Cornigi remembers speaking to her cousin Sunday night and seeing police around the building the next day, telling her that 2 of her family members were now gone. The 25-year-old now faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, leaving Cornigi wondering how this could have happened.
Couldn't figure out why he did it and what for.
Online, messages poured in. Instagram posts filled with candle emojis. Photos of Dana and Darren. Quotes from scripture, condolences, rage, confusion. One post read, "You were the sweetest soul, Darren. You deserved the world. I hope heaven is brighter with you in it." Another simply said, "She loved that boy more than life itself." Now they're gone, together. On April 12th, just 12 days after the murders, Dana Jenkins and Darren Cox were laid to rest. The funeral was held at Ellen Forbes OFWB Tabernacle. The pews were packed. Family, friends, teachers, neighbors, even strangers who'd heard the story and couldn't stay away. Pastor Damon Royal delivered a eulogy that focused on the love they left behind, rather than the horror of how they were taken. The following day, their bodies were buried side by side at Rest Haven Cemetery. As the final prayer was spoken and flowers were gently placed on the fresh earth, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't just a family in mourning. It was a community grieving the loss of 2 of its brightest lights. On April 1st, 2025, just 1 day after the murders, Darren Jenkins appeared in court for the first time. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, he didn't even look at the gallery, where devastated family members sat holding each other in disbelief. He just stared forward, blankly, like a man waiting for a train. Not like someone accused of murdering his own mother and teenage brother in cold blood. The courtroom was heavy with silence. The kind of silence that follows a scream. The charges were read, 2 counts of first-degree murder. The judge ordered him held without bond. Prosecutors made it clear this wasn't going to be a case of temporary insanity. This wasn't going to be written off as a moment of madness. They believed it was planned. Deliberate, calculated.
Jenkins is also accused of killing his 15-year-old brother, a Wilson County school student who is being remembered by Beddingfield High School and Mount Moriah Community Church in Wilson.
They loved each other. They loved us. We loved them, especially Darren. He meant the world to all of us. Our teens here, they're grieving heavily.
According to court documents, Jenkins was released from prison on March 25th on separate charges, just 1 week before the incident. Jenkins is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder as Wilson police investigate the circumstances surrounding the victims' deaths.
This is a tragedy, and honestly, there is no winner in this. And I'll be praying for everyone watching this, everyone affected by this and impacted by this.
As the investigation deepened, more disturbing details came to light. Darren Jenkins had been denied parole not once, but twice, due to repeated infractions and violent behavior while in prison. His release wasn't based on rehabilitation. It was procedural, mandatory. He had served his time on paper, but not in spirit. And then came the most chilling discovery yet. According to court records, Dana Jenkins had a life insurance policy through her employer. A modest policy, but enough to make someone desperate take notice. The listed beneficiary? Darren. The same son she welcomed back with food, prayer, and unconditional love, may have seen her not as family, but as a payout. But was it just about money? Or was there something deeper festering in Darren's heart? Was it years of bitterness? Did he resent Dana for raising Darren differently? For loving him more openly? Did he look at his younger brother, the smiling, church-going honor student, and see everything he had lost? Everything he could never be? No one may ever fully know what was happening inside Darren Jenkins in those final days. But prosecutors say the signs were clear. The purchases, the surveillance, the silence, the control. This wasn't spontaneous. This was murder by design, a betrayal so profound it left an entire town shattered and a family tree cut down at its roots. And as the case heads to trial, one truth is already etched into the hearts of everyone who loved Dana and Darren. No sentence will undo what he took from them.
Man, this is a bad, sad situation, man. The thing is, what I'm trying to understand is like, what everybody's trying to understand is, why did he do it? But they said that he got forced out of prison. Basically, he didn't even get out of prison on good behavior or nothing. He was in there terrorizing the prison. So that makes me think like, maybe he wanted to go back to prison. Maybe he wanted to stay there. I don't know. There's so many questions. There's so many questions, man, about this whole situation. Like, if your mother love you that much, the way that that lady loved her son, from what I seen, she had a lot of love for her kids, bro. From all the people that was saying what they were saying in the community, the pastor and everything. So why would you even do something like this? You know, some people just don't know what they got until it's gone, man. And hopefully this young man wake up and realize that he fucked up. But I think it's a little too late for that. Till the next time, man, love yourself, take care of yourself, stay focused. Gone.